Off. I think if you're a Burnley fan, perhaps if you're a neutral, you'd say Burnley probably shaded that game. They had the better chances overall. Really should have taken advantage when they had us penned back, and they were getting the ball into the box with too little challenge from us, really, and should have scored. Rodriguez when close, as you say. From the Arsenal perspective, if you start the game with those two chances taken, suddenly it's a very comfortable afternoon. And Aubameyang, let's not forget, had that header in the second half too. So somehow it's finished goalless. I think that's a hard-earned point for us.
You mentioned that, potentially we're regressing a little bit. I mean, it can't be every single step forward with Mikel Arteta. There's going to be bumps in the roads here. How significant was this one? How disappointed are you with this one in a way?
I'm disappointed. I don't think we got bullied, but I think we let Burnley do what they do best. I think there would have been instructions to get closer to the crosser. There would have been instructions to not defend too deep against teams that are good in the air. Maybe we couldn't do it mainly, but maybe Burnley just played too well for us at times. But Mikel Arteta's obviously got a lot of work to do.
13th draw in the Premier League this season for the Gunners. It is a point. It means that we do go above Southampton and Newcastle and back into the top half of the table for what it means. But we are still, some 10 points behind Chelsea in 4th place. And certainly the race for European qualification might take a different turn now in terms of FA Cup and Europa League. Yeah. It's slightly different, isn't it, from here on in? Maybe. We will see. It's a big break till our next game. Much to discuss from today, though. We're going to hand you back down south in the gang at the Emirates Stadium. It's finished here. Burnley 0, Arsenal 0.
Yeah, thank you very much, fellas. That's right, Perry Groves and Johnny Cochran with me, Nick Bright, here at the Emirates Stadium. Right, Perry, initial thoughts for that second half, then?
Well, at least we've got a point, so that's a positive. I must admit, I think the second half we didn't impose ourselves. We allowed Burnley to impose themselves on us. I think we struggled with their physicality. The game, obviously, Burnley made it the way they wanted to. They made it like about a sort of an arm wrestle sort of thing, and that's not our strength. We didn't have enough people today who had the character and the personality to change the dynamics of the game. And we looked very stretched in the second half, I thought. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Rodriguez having probably the miss night of the season, but his own personal Ronnie Rosenthal moment, then obviously we've been the wrong end of a 1-0 defeat. So it's a point, as the boys said in commentary, there's too many draws. At a minute, it seems to be one step forward and like 2 steps back. So after the first 20-25 minutes, where I was, quite happy and quite confident, we had the 3 decent chances. I think it was, if you're being perfectly honest, it was like a decidedly average performance, but at least we've got a point out of it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the highlight of the second half for you, Johnny, is you got your lunch.
Yeah, it was tasty. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
I need my chips.
Yeah. I mean, no, look, the game was quite dire. Called a spade a spade. It wasn't great. I thought we were really poor in the second half at times. And the one thing you can say, like Perry said, we didn't get beaten, although we were quite lucky not to get beaten. Probably should have been beaten by the end. A big chance for Rodriguez. But ultimately, we weren't really coherent today, and it was a bit of a lack of ideas. This has definitely been the poorest game since Arteta's taken over, maybe outside the first game where he hadn't really barely trained the team. This one, we didn't really look like we knew what we were doing at times, and you need to be a lot smarter than that when you take on a team like Burnley. You know what they're going to do. You've got to be a bit more wily, show a bit more guile if you want to break a team like Burnley down. And at times, it was like we ran out of ideas. And that being said, we did have some big chances, and Aubameyang and Lacazette can both look at themselves and think, well, we probably should finish those chances. Certainly Lacazette in the first half and Aubameyang in the second. But the reason why we draw attention to the chances like that is because you don't end up getting loads of chances. Yeah. So when you get a chance like that, you've got to pull the trigger and got to finish, otherwise we won't win. Yeah,
well, you mentioned the word ideas there, and speaking of ideas, there's a fan out there on social media who thinks that they've got one. It's Elliot. Ceballos and Pepe to come in the next game is the shout there from Elliot. And we've got another one here saying Arsenal dwelling way too long on the ball. Could have had a lot more counters had we shown some urgency in the passing. Ceballos and Pepe for you, Perry, to come in?
To be fair, if you're going to play Ceballos, he's either going to play in the 10 position in the middle of the 3 or he'll play a little bit deeper. I personally would like to see Joe Willock. If you're going to make a change in that 10 position, I'd rather see Joe Willock given a chance from the start, because he's got good awareness. We saw against Bournemouth, he lets the ball run across his body. He's got good athleticism, and he'll do a job for you when you haven't got the ball. Today, when he said the passing was, I actually thought our passing was poor in the second half. I thought we gave the ball away unnecessary a lot of times, so then you can't get into rhythm and you can't take this thing out of the game because you give the ball away, it goes for a throw-in, that becomes a fight ball. Too many unnecessary free kicks, especially in the wide areas where you've got to be a bit more professional because they just want to obviously put the ball into the box. So I just thought it was a disjointed display, where if you look at Chelsea, where we go down to 10 men and we're 4-4-1 and we look like we're very compact and we look like we was going to make it hard for Chelsea to break us down. Today, I don't think we made it. I don't think as a unit, I don't think we were solid enough. And it's, as I say, Arteta will learn. He'll learn a lot from that today. Learn a lot about the players. Obviously, got at his disposal, and I think bullied is the wrong word, but I think we allowed ourselves to be dominated at certain periods of the game by Burnley's physicality, where it didn't look like that in the first 20-25 minutes. We regressed, and we still got this tendency. We talked about Murray coming in. We still got this tendency to drop too deep. Like a lot of times when Burnley were clearing it, Mustafi is 5 or 6 yards away from whether it's Rodriguez or whether it's Wood, where you've got to be right up their backsides basically and challenging for the ball, because you drop off, they turn, and then the whole Burnley team can push themselves up. So there was a lot that wasn't right, but at least say there's a point out of it.
Yeah, we were competitive, weren't we? We did actually, we could have won today, but probably 55-45, probably more likely to have lost. It was we didn't roll over in a tough environment like we have in the past. So there is a bit more steel to us, but ultimately quite an uninspiring performance. And for me, as I mentioned before the game, I think top four has gone now for us. I can't see it happening. We draw too many games, and that run that we would need to go on. Well, I just don't think we're going to be able to get that going towards the end of the year. So Europa and the FA Cup look like our main options now.
Well, you mentioned the word draws there, Johnny. You're leading me on to my next tweets nicely. You've got a couple of tweets here. A strong first 25 minutes, hung on for the draw from Eric. And Matt says 4 consecutive Premier League draws for Arsenal, which is very frustrating. And Ryan says only 6 wins from 25 games so far this season and still on negative goal difference. The Premier League has been a difficult watch for us Arsenal fans this time round. Hopefully the Europa League and the FA Cup can bring us more joy. Yeah, Perry, I think it was mentioned by the commentators, I should say, that the FA Cup and the Europa League, should we be turning our attention to those now a little bit more? Not neglecting the Premier League completely, but Johnny's just said top four's gone.
Well, I think without a shadow of a doubt, the Europa League, and because I'm old school, I want to win trophies. Your season is defined. If we end up, say we end up 8th or 9th, but you win the FA Cup or you win Europa League, especially because you get in the Champions League, but even if you win the FA Cup, you can say, do you know what? It's been good. It's been a good season because you've won a trophy. Yeah. If you end up 8th or 9th and you don't win anything, then it's been, for Arsenal Football Club, the size that we are, it's been a poor season. So those 2 competitions will define our season now. Because I agree with Johnny. I had a little bet about 2 or 3 weeks ago about us getting in the top 4 because the odds were really good. But now I think 10 points is miles too many. And we're not at the stage. Everybody knew it was going to be rebuilding for Mikel Arteta, and we knew that he's got a free half a season really to implement his philosophy, his ideas, get his own players in, get the players at the end of the season that he wants out. I would be completely focused on Europa League now, completely. The FA Cup will be my second priority, and then the Premier League, because we're going to be known. But we'll end up probably looking at this. We'll end up 8th, I'd have thought, 7th or 8th at the moment. We've got to be realistic, but I want to see these green shoots, start then sort of flourishing a little bit more where we've regressed a little. But that was a bit of the last sort of 50 minutes was a bit of an Unai Emery like performance for me, say the disjointed stuff, but he's just starting to try and get his philosophy across. Yeah. And he will learn a lot of that, say Arteta, without a shadow of a doubt. And you can't PB in every race, as they say. Do you know what I mean? So we go again in a few weeks. Right, let's have a look at the updated Premier League table then after today's result. Back into the top half. Yeah. That's where we are. Open top bus time. Yeah, exactly. Back into the top half, 10th position there. Still, that negative goal difference irks me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I want to see us scoring more goals and from more players. We're too reliant on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, of course. And if he's not firing, it seems we don't really score. But as Perry's just said, we can hope to push up the table. But if you're being realistic, probably 8th, 7th is what you're looking at, Johnny. Yeah, I think so. I mean,
there's no point in getting away, carried away. The reality is, our season will be defined in 2 halves anyway, but obviously because we had a change of manager. But the way, I think partly what this does do is illuminate just what disarray we were in. I mean, we were spiralling, and some wholesale changes really needed to get made. And I think some really positive changes have already been made, and I don't think the job's done yet. I think as we move towards the end of the season, like Perry says, Arteta will get a better idea of the players he wants to keep and build around, and others that are going to be not required moving forwards. And then hopefully we can, set the ground, hit the ground running next season. And we were having a debate off camera during the game about whether we would take 8th, stay out Europa next year. Like, let's forget about what happens in the Europa League this year, because obviously we want to win the Europa League no matter what, and then we'd be in the Champions League. But if we didn't win the Europa League, is it actually better to stay out the Europa League next year so we can fully focus on the Premier League next year? I would say, yeah, I would. And I think, well, that's the point you were making.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm old school because it's a less chance to win a trophy. But I think on the long-term project with Arteta having a week in between games, we've seen Chelsea before under Antonio Conte having a free run during the week. They won the title. Leicester, they won the title, exactly the same thing. And also, I think this period of time, the breaks come at a good time because I think they're going to go to Dubai or somewhere altogether. But it'll get more training in it because we look a little bit leggy at the moment for the way that Arteta wants us to play with this high press, like sort of energetic way. They need more explosive sprints in their legs and be able to do it over a long period of time. And today it looked like we couldn't do it. So this 2 weeks, not only for his philosophy of playing, but on the fitness side of it, I think it's come at a really good time for him, then coming back and obviously going against Olympiacos.
It's really going to help. So you mentioned there that the team might be jetting off to Dubai. What are you guys doing for your winter break? Anything nice? Jetting off to the Philippines or anything?
You know what, the thing is we don't really have the same budgets as Arsenal Football Club. So, I've had my winter holiday. I went to Fuerteventura, and that was lovely. But that was as glamorous as it gets. You'll probably see me knocking around London because that's as far as it goes for me.
I'm going Jaywick. It's right, a nice little chalet in Jaywick.
There we go.
Host from Clacton, very nice.
Oh, nice.
Lovely jubbly. And just before we go, Johnny Cochran, I know you're a massive Kansas City Chiefs fan. You watching the Super Bowl tonight?
Oh, try and stop me. I have been hooked to the NFL this year, and because I'm a big KC fan, it's been cheering me up how well they've done. Even when Arsenal maybe have been a little disappointing this year. Come on the Chiefs, and obviously come on Arsenal.
A KC fan, KFC, get your KFC ordered as well if you're watching the Super Bowl.
Pescatarian these days? No.
Get a vegan burger, mate, it's fine. Right, thank you, of course, for watching Arsenal Nation Live. There is a winter break now, so we are back Sunday the 16th against Newcastle. 3:45 is when you can catch us here. I'll be here. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.